Okay, so we're going to still go over dividing by unit and non-unit fractions. So we'll be doing lesson 10 today. So the beginning slide kind of reminds you of the algorithm keep, change, flip. So that's what we're going to get a little bit more practice doing. And we're going to find out why we keep, change, flip. So it says, let's look for patterns when we divide by a fraction. So you're just listening right now. It says to answer the question, how many thirds are in 4? We could also say, what is 4 divided by a third, right? So this is kind of what you've been dealing with this whole time, the past few classes, right? So remember that 4 times 3, right? So 4 times 3, you know, is 12. Okay, so that's important to know. Now, if I work this out where I keep, change, flip, that would be 4 over 1 times 3 over 1. Okay, so 4 times 3 makes 12 over 1. Well, you don't need the 1, right? You know that. That also equals 12. So notice how if I did 4 divided by the fraction, I get 12. And if I do 4 times 3, I get 12. So I get the same outcome. And that's when I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. So it says, in general, dividing by a number by a unit 1 over b is the same as multiplying by b to its reciprocal. So that's kind of what I just said. So I'm going to deal with this one right here, right? So what they're trying to point out to you is 4 divided by 2 over 3. Let me work that out. So 4 over 1 times 3 over 2, right? Keep, change, flip, which we've done. And I get 12 over 2. Okay, so 12 divided by 2 makes 6. Okay, well, if I take this here where I multiplied by it, and I did 4 times 3, well, 4 times 3, you know, is 12. And then I divide by 2, I get 6. So notice that when I multiply by the reciprocal, or the opposite, I get the same answer. And that's kind of what we're going to prove today. So dividing by a whole number, you're starting out on page 60. And on page 60, we are not going to be drawing the diagrams. I am going to be more focusing on the math today. So I want you on page 60, and I'm going to do number 1. It says, how many 3s are in 12? So it asks for a division equation. So you're going to write what you see in yellow. 12, the total, divided by 3 makes 4. Very easy. You've learned this multiple times way in previous grades before this, right? Okay, so you're just writing what you see in the yellow box. So for letter B, how many 4s are in 12? So keep note, 12 is the total. So 12 needs to come first. So 12 divided by 4 makes 3. So under B, write what you see in the yellow box. All right, now I think A is on page 60 and B is on 61. So just kind of follow through, but you're on page 60 to 61 for this slide. So now I'm at number 2. So it says, what is 12 groups of 1/3? Okay, so your multiplication equation is the yellow box. 12 times 1 over 3 equals 4. So that's what you will write. Now for letter B, it says, what is 12 groups of 1/4? I'm sorry. And they want a multiplication equation. So you would do 12 times 1/4, and that would get your answer. Okay, so now it says on page 61 for number 3, what do you notice about the equations? And you should write down, you multiply by the reciprocal. Now I'm going to show you a quick, easy example to kind of show you what we're talking about. So 6 over 2, right? That means 6 divided by 2. That makes 3. And I could have wrote it like that, or I could have wrote it like that. Regardless, you get 3. Now 1/2 is the reciprocal of 2. So if I did 6 times 1/2, I work it out, 6 over 1 times 1/2. And 6 times 1 is 6. That's a 2. I don't know why it cut off. 1 times 2 is 2. So 6 divided by 2 makes 3. So you could divide by 2, or you can multiply by the opposite, or 1/2. So multiplication is the opposite of division. So instead of dividing a fraction, we can multiply it by the opposite. And that's why you flip it. That's exactly why. And you change the sign. Okay, so now you're on page 61. And I'm doing number 1. Says to find the value of 6 divided by half. Elena thought, how many halves are in 6? And she drew this diagram. It shows 6 ones. So this is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And she put each one into a half, right? So what happens is if I already see 6 divided by half, in my brain, I think that's 6 times 2. And I get 12. And notice that if you take 6 groups and you split them in half, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 groups, which was my answer there. Okay, so there was nothing really to write. I was just more showing you on that one. And then this kind of breaks off again onto 2 pages. So 61 and 62. So I'm doing number 2. It says, for each division expression, complete the diagram. We're going to more focus on the equation and the answer. So everything that you see in these little teal boxes here, that's what you're going to be writing. Okay, so let's get practice with this. 6 divided by 1 over 3 is the same as 6 times 3. So under A, you should write 6 times 3 is 18. And then you'll fill in 18 for the answer, or the value, we call that. All right, letter B. 6 divided by 1 over 4 is the same as 6 times 4, which is 24. So you'll write 24 and you'll write the equation that you see right there. Now for letter C, 6 divided by 1, 6, right? So 6 divided by 1 over 6 is the same as 6 times 6, right? So I could work that out over here. 6 over 1 times 6 over 1, right? I change, I flipped this equation, and I get 36. So notice how they're the same, no matter how I do it. You just multiply by the opposite. So now on page 62, it says, analyze the expression and look at your answers. Look for the pattern. And I've kind of been telling you the pattern. It says, how did you find half, thirds, fourths, sixths, whatever we just did, without counting? And the bottom line is you multiplied by the denominator. So let me show you up here. When I have this one here, this 6 and 1/4, technically speaking, I just multiplied 6 and 4. So what you'll write for number 3 is we just multiplied by the denominator. That's the pattern. And again, this only works when we divide. All right, page 62. Now it says use your observations from previous questions to answer. So here we go. 6 over 1 times 8 over 1, right? That's what that is. When you keep, you change, you flip, and you get 48 over 1, which is 48. So you don't need to do all that, is the point. And the only time this is true is when you have a 1 on the top, the way all of these problems have worked. So it's the same as doing 6 times 8, which is 48. All right, so now letter B, we would do 6 times 10, right? This times the denominator, and we would get 60. Okay, so again, if you want me to work it out, 6 over 1 times 10 over 1. Keep, change, flip. 60 over 1. Well, 60 can't divide into 1, it's just 60, right? When you divide 60 by 1. All right, last section. So page 63, and I'm only doing number 1. So it says to find the value of 6 divided by 2/3. Now take note, this is different. All the examples that you saw above, it was 1/8, 1/3, 1/6. Well, this new example is going to be 2/3, 2/6, right? That's what we're going to see now. So it's a little bit different. It says she had her diagram this way for 6 divided by 1/3. Use her diagram to find out how many 2/3 are in 6. Adjust and label the diagram. So I made it pink and purple. Your diagram, you should separate. So this is 2/3, this is 2, this is, so we're breaking every third up in 2 is kind of what's happening. And then you count the groups, right? So how many groups of the purple and the pink? And your answer would be 9. So there are 9 groups. So you're going to make your tape diagram, and then your answer is 9. Okay, last one, B. She says to find 6 divided by 2/3, I can just take the value of 6 and 1/3, then either multiply half or divide by 2. Do you agree? And the answer is yes, because 1/3 times 1/3 is 2/3. So yes, you can multiply by 2. Okay, so come back to class. We'll start the practice and we'll do some of these together.